Welcome back, everyone, to the Canadian Baseball Network podcast. We're thrilled to be joined today by MLBPA certified player agent with Klutch Sports Group, Mike Bonanno. Mike, it's been a long time. I feel like I've been bugging you to come on here for a while now.
Bugging's not the right word, Matty. Bugging's not the right word, but I appreciate you guys having me on. It's a thrill. So thank you.
For sure. So a busy time. I don't know if January is normally busy for you, but let's just jump right into it. Owen Caissie. I mean, you represent Owen and a big trade involving him. He goes to the Marlins and as part of the Edward Cabrera package. Take us through a little bit about how that all went down. Was that something that was expected? Did you have it on your radar? And kind of take us through the process.
Yeah, I think it's never expected anytime a player is traded, especially of the magnitude of Owen's caliber. But at the end of the day, these organizations are going to run the club how they see fit to try to put the best team out there. So we definitely heard Owen's name being talked about, as did a lot of other people on social media, and kind of got wind of it a little bit before it kind of got out. And thrilled, obviously, in the landing spot. Thrilled with the Cubs were able to do for his career and his development. And obviously now I get to look forward to the trips to Miami.
What's your role in a trade like that? Like you said, obviously the team's going to do what the team wants to do. But as far as kind of with your client, what kind of role do you take on as this process is playing out?
Yeah, I mean, with Owen, it's a little bit unique because he's been dealt before. Obviously being drafted by San Diego and traded to Chicago relatively quickly. I mean, we've kind of gone through this together and understand each other's kind of movement towards any type of trade or transaction. I was lucky enough to have some people inside the organization that were able to, I guess, talk to us and tell us what was going on before it got to the media. So Owen was very well versed on understanding, the protocols, procedures, and what they were trying to do. And like I said, I mean, there's no better feeling than obviously being wanted by an organization and have a chance to step foot in a place now that has a very young core and kind of great landing spot for this part of his journey of his career.
You mentioned that this is the second time, obviously, he was part of the Yu Darvish trade. Was this time a little bit different, given just he's a little bit more known, he's made his big league debut, and he was kind of the centerpiece? Not that he wasn't a big part of the previous package, but he was kind of like the centerpiece of this package.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, he loved Chicago, loved his teammates, loved his coaches, and every person that he kind of, had a chance to meet and be around with the Cubs. I think, they helped develop the player that is Owen Caissie today. And I think on my side, it's humbling being able to be that centerpiece of a big trade and all the fanfare and media that comes along with it. If you know Owen, comes from two unbelievable parents and a great support system. And being able to kind of get now again to a place where, he's going to be able to establish himself in a market that has a great young core and a great coaching staff is super exciting for us.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned his parents. I remember I was fortunate enough to cover the Cubs when he came to Toronto, made his debut, and he teared up afterwards talking about his parents in the interview. So, and we've had him on here before, and he just seems like, he seems like a professional baseball player, but it was cool to see that kind of personal side.
Yeah, Michelle and Jay are the benchmark to me of hardworking, humble, allow Owen to make his mistakes, but also there to support him through it all. And, again, as a parent with two young kids, it's definitely something that I've tried to model myself by as a parent, just watching how they support him and able to give him enough leash to be him and also enough to kind of bring him back and be like, hey, man, like, let's hone in a little bit here.
What do you have to do for him in this process? What's he doing now? Obviously, he's going to spring training with the Marlins, but is there anything that he has to get done before spring training, or is it just kind of, hey, you're not coming back to the Cubs, see you in Miami?
Yeah, I mean, the way he ended the season was a little bit more unique than most players. I mean, he ends the year on the concussion IL, hit his head off the ivy there and had to miss the rest of the season. And he made kind of a conscious decision right then to be like, hey, look, I have to be ready opening day, and with the unknown at the time, obviously still a Cub. I'm going to go to Eric Cressey, who he believes, can get his body and everything right to be ready to go opening day. So he's been in Florida since basically the day the season ended. He didn't come home. He went right to Florida. The next day was at Cressey lifting as soon as he got the green light from his head. And he's been there ever since, came home for, a week to see family and friends, and right back to Cressey he went. The beautiful part, obviously, being traded to the Marlins, being in Jupiter for spring training, he's right there. So he's already been in the facility, met some of the people, met the manager and stuff like that. So it's been an unbelievable transition from his offseason to Cressey to now being a Marlin.
It seems like a perfect landing spot for him, given where the Marlins are obviously at, and they're building a really good young core. Obviously the goal, I'm assuming, is to make the opening day roster. So you say his health and everything is good to go, and he's going to go into camp completely with a clean bill of health?
full bill of health, and he's going to play obviously in the WBC also, which we're very thankful that the Marlins were supportive of that. Being able to get through it with the Cubs, they were supportive about it. Obviously, gets traded. There's some unknowns, but we really believe, especially as a hitter. I mean, you have a chance to go, play for your country, and especially like I said, as a hitter, and you're going to get meaningful at bats, play 9 innings, and it's not that beginning of spring training. I don't call it lull, but competitive at bats in a great atmosphere, and he's super excited and feels like he should be ready, mid camp or opening day, better off by being able to get those at bats in the WBC.
Just a question for you about kind of the recruitment process generally, about, when you're an agent kind of trying to get players, to be able to represent them. How does that process work? How early do you reach out and kind of, the getting them to trust you, I guess, as their agent?
Trust me. Oh, wow. No, I think it's just really, it depends. I think the Canadian landscape is a little bit different than some of the American markets, obviously. But I think for me, we really put an emphasis and rely on a lot of the scouting directors, cross-checkers to be able to talent evaluate a lot better than I can do. I've said it, a million times over. I've said as parents, like, I don't have the ability to draft your son and pay your son. But with that being said, being able to rely on those people that, help us evaluate talent at a young age is very, very important. Furthermore to that, I probably overvalue anyone that you'll ever meet in makeup. I'm lucky enough to represent, not great baseball players, but unbelievable people. Ones that, like, I'd be proud for my son and or daughters, let's call it, to wear their jersey. And, for me, I think makeup is a huge separator, because every player in the game of baseball is a fantastic baseball player. You're talking about the 1%. So kind of what makes you different. And I've been lucky enough to be in this country and to do this for 13-ish years now. And I've really noticed, like, the Canadian players really understand and have a great feel for, like, what they're trying to be as a human on top of the baseball player. And for me, I probably overvalue that in the recruiting process. I know I've backed myself out of, meetings with parents after one meeting, just, hey, we're just not a great fit. Because for me, I kind of see it like a relationship, and there needs to be, a unit together that has one goal. And if, I can't trust you and you can't, I mean, you can always trust me, right? As they always say, but if it kind of doesn't work back and forth, then, I kind of just bow myself out early on, because I seek that pretty heavily.
That's why I'm talking now about the guy whose jersey's hanging over your left shoulder there, Jonah Tong. Did you see his rise coming like it did? Because it seemed like he was striking everybody out. He was flying through the minors, and then all of a sudden he's at the big league level. So did you see that? I know you obviously believe in the player to get to that point, but did you think it was coming that quickly?
You'd have to ask Jonah probably that. But yeah, of course. Because if you ever had a chance to be around Jonah, I've never met anybody more authentic to himself and to what he's trying to accomplish in not only this game, but in life. He is one of the greatest human beings I've ever had a chance to be around. So yeah, the ascension, like, there may be some down times, there may be some tough times, but I always knew that he'd be able to get through those. The COVID draft and kind of just that whole run that he was in kind of made things a little bit difficult. But he landed in a perfect spot that obviously gave him the opportunities now to run through a minor league system, because he's earned that. And, the sky is the limit to me for Jonah in trying to accomplish whatever he wants to in this game, because, again, I've seen how hard he works, and I've seen how he bounced back. I mean, Jonah had one of the greatest lines, he's ever used or I've ever heard in my life. Had just a tough outing in one of his outings. And he turns to me after the game and he's like, look, I can't let, what happened today affect my preparation and work for tomorrow. So as disappointing as it is, you got to clean the slate and kind of get back to work the next day, because I got another start in 5-6 days. So, for him to understand that and really truly believe that, it's one thing to say it, but he truly in his core, believes that. And it's a special, special person and a special, special player.
Yeah. I mean, and does he ever stop smiling? Every time I see him on TV.
It's, I mean, I'm so lucky. Like, my kids call him Uncle Jonah. He FaceTimes the day of his debut, and I just happened to be with my kiddo. He's just a family person. Again, great family, phenomenal, girlfriend and support system kind of by his side. But yeah, no, he always has a big smile on his face. It's the best. It's so infectious.
Talk a little bit about how, because this wasn't just a regular call up. I mean, talk a little bit about how, he gets called up to New York. So not an easy market to begin with at any point of the year. It could be January and it's a tough market, but it's in the middle of a playoff race. The team was, battling for a playoff spot. How did he handle that, the bright lights of that? And what did that say to you about the person that he is that maybe you didn't know?
That he's never going to change. Yeah. He's going to be authentic to himself. And that's the best part of him. amongst obviously the high rise heater and everything else that comes with his repertoire. But I think it really showed me and just solidified in a way of the belief that I don't want to say I've always had in him, because I have had that, but at the end of the day, like, I'm just one person, and he's the guy that has the ball in his hand and gets to control his success. I take no credit for any of that. That's all Jonah. But those bright lights, maybe, he said at the Baseball Canada Gala on Saturday, his pitching coach was like, "Hey, look around and take it all in." He saw his name flashing up in the lights, and he's like, "Hey, I've never seen that before." It's going around and around kind of at Citi Field. And then, he's getting loose, and they're like, "Hey, look again." He's like, "I've never seen that before." So I think there's so many firsts that he does such a good job of stepping out of it, embracing it, and then get back to work. And that's kind of a message to all young players. It's been pretty cool. I mean, he's never played for the junior national team. He was never at T12. He's never pitched at the Rogers Center. I mean, he's an unbelievable story for Canadian baseball, and the proof that, like, just because you may not get that fanfare today, doesn't mean that's not going to happen down the road if you work hard and obviously take care of your business on the field.
Where's he at with the World Baseball Classic? Can you share anything about that? I got to ask.
UVU. Had a conversation with Greg this morning about it. And, look, every player wants to wear that jersey on their chest and be able to represent their country. And for someone that hasn't done it, I think that's definitely something that's on the bucket list during his baseball career. At this point, I would say undecided. I think we're waiting to see what happens, obviously, within the organization, have some dialogue and conversations with people in the head office. Every player would want to go play for their country, and especially our country, because, it is a very close-knit family. And we had a chance at the banquet for him to be around, some old Toronto Mets that are now going to play in the WBC. So I'm sure the sell was definitely on Saturday night. But yeah, right now I think it's just get to Florida. He got there on Monday or so yesterday. Start throwing some bullpens, see how you feel, and we'll probably reassess here over the next week or 10 days. But will we love to go? Sure. But I think at the end of the day, his career long term means so much more. And if he's not 100% ready to go, it's obviously a detriment to not only his career, but the New York Mets also.
I want to see him there, obviously, but yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I guess baseball fans will have to live with that.
Well, the hard part too is, especially for any pitcher, right? Like, he's coming off a career workload. And again, I don't want to speak for Jonah on this stuff, but the human nature of it is, hey, it's me against so-and-so, in the box. And we say Owen, it's me against Owen in the box. I'm not going to go 70%, but if I'm only 70% ready for opening day, no, it's my best versus yours. I got to get you out. So, a lot of these pitchers have to make sure they're 100% go, because they're just so competitive that they don't know a 70 or 80%.
Yeah.
They're not going to give in to a hitter. They're like, I'm getting you out if it's the last thing I do. So again, it's a tough spot to be in, but I know this Canadian team is going to be really, really good, and especially offensively, and it's going to be pretty fun to watch.
You've had a kind of a really special opportunity over the last couple of years. This past year with Owen and Jonah, and the year before, I believe, was Eric Sabrowski made his debut. All these years together. It was 2025, right?
Yeah.
There's the jersey, by the way, if you're watching this.
You're a Go Oilers on it. I could have done without that, but
what's that like? Does the team obviously lets him know first, and then, or what role do you play in that? And what's that like to kind of share that moment? Kind of behind the scenes with the player.
It honestly is. I didn't mean to interrupt you. It's so addicting. The draft, I would say 99 times out of 100, you're telling the family and the player that your dreams are about to come true. You're about to, be a professional athlete, or you're about to have that opportunity to make that decision to be. And then you're with these guys for, 4, 5, 6 years sometimes, and they get called in the coach's office and get told that they're going to debut, and then they get to tell you. So you have this real full circle moment. With Sabrowski, I remember all these debuts like vividly. He calls me at, midnight, and, I'm lying in bed, just lying in bed with my kid, fell asleep in his bed, see my phone buzz multiple times. I get up and I'm like, who's calling me at this hour? And, 2, 3 missed calls. And I'm like, no way. I call him. Obviously, I think it was Kansas City. He debuted, couldn't make it there right away. Saw him in Cleveland shortly thereafter. Owens and Jonah, still to me, I mean, they're all so special, but I've known Owen since he was 12 years old. And he calls me, I don't want to say in tears. Jonah called me, just couldn't speak. He was just crying beside himself in a positive way, obviously. So just to see that true emotion of you fulfilling a lifelong dream and goal is something that just will live with me forever. It is a core memory.
How nervous are you watching them in their debuts? I'm assuming you've watched them all at least relatively soon after they made their debut. I know you were in Toronto, and I believe you saw Jonah's first start.
I did, yeah. And
what's that? Is that like a parent watching their kid? Like what is that like?
Yeah, well, I mean, of course, right? But I don't get nervous when you watch them because again, they're such professionals that that they're in control. So it's like being passenger in a seat. That the driver is knock on wood going to get you from A to B safely, and so there's definitely no nerves. But I remember Owen's first AB. I mean, obviously, thank you, David Schneider, for that one. But he hits it, and I remember just standing up, and I was like, oh, is this ball going to get out of here? Obviously, it doesn't. But all of a sudden he catches it. And I just remember going to my head, being like, did that just happen? And with Jonah, I think it was just the first pitch. Once the first pitch got out of the way, and it's like, all right, we're good to go. Let's get to work. And again, I was able to be beside his family for that one, his girlfriend, mom, dad, uncles, and stuff like that. So being able to be there with them in a moment like that was surreal.
I want to shift gears and ask you a little bit about, from an agent's perspective on the way the media operates when it comes to, say, the off season or the trade deadline.
Play the fifth.
And there's all this information going around, not specifically your situation, but just generally speaking, how, insiders get information and how information gets leaked and how that might benefit someone. That process and how it plays out, that's something, not necessarily saying you've been involved in that, but how does that kind of insider game work, for lack of a better term?
I think there's people that are very, very, very good at their jobs, that are insiders within baseball. And, we have unbelievable working relationships, and I have a lot of respect for what their job is and what they're trying to create here in the baseball world. And then there's some people that it's just about them, and it's about trying to get clicks, and it doesn't matter in a way that who was right. It just, everyone wants to be first. And I understand that. And I get how that looks, obviously, to an employer. But, for me, I enjoy working probably in secrecy more than anyone you meet. I think, again, this is about my clients, and it's about the people that I'm lucky enough to represent. And, I think they've earned that and deserve, me personally anyways, being able that their story is told by them and not kind of by me. So, yes, I have great working relationships, with a lot of these major people, but at the end of the day, I know that they have a job to do, and I have a job also to protect my clients, and we're cognizant and try to respect each other in that space. It's tough. I mean, everyone wants to be able to leak a story or leak a trade, or leak a free agent signing, but who are you really helping? And I think, organizationally, I think you love sometimes when it comes from the club, being able to kind of tell it first and build that trust more than anything. So, for young agents out there, for older agents, for young media people, old media people, whoever it is, I think as long as you have a working relationship and you can trust them to be like, hey, either A, this is off the record, or B, what are you hearing? Yeah, there's a lot of value in them being able to help and assist. And to be honest, I just saw it in the Owen trade. I might have had 12, 13 media people reach out to me once the Edward Cabrera kind of news broke that they were close to acquiring him. Is it Owen? Is it Owen? Is it Owen? Is it Owen? And I said, look, at the end of the day, whether I know this answer or not, it's not fair to Owen to find out on social media either. So until he's hearing from a club, in my mind, it's a little bit of hearsay. So that's probably where I stand on it all. Maybe not the best answer to give to some people, but try to be authentic to them and obviously authentic to myself and protect my guys most importantly.
No, I think that's an honest answer. I think anyone that, is respectable in the business would appreciate that. To jump ship a little bit, I want to talk about arbitration and how that whole process works, because I think there's a lot of questions about it. So obviously going into a hearing, both sides file at a certain amount. Can you just kind of take it from there and kind of what happens throughout the process?
Yeah, I mean, every organization kind of that I've dealt with, especially personally, kind of starts it now at a different date, different time. We went through it this offseason with Austin Wins and the Athletics. Some organizations now are reaching out way earlier than they've ever done to try to find a pre-tender deal. I think it's understanding, most importantly, like the market for your player in their case and how it would look in that landscape. Being able to find, they call them comps, like comparable players to your player based on the statistical data is vital. And I think that gives you, a lot of leverage and understanding where you would stand in the arbitration market. At the end of the day, I mean, we see a big one right now with, I think, the largest gap ever in arbitration history. So that'll be, I think, every agent and every organization probably will be circling that one or highlighting that one to see how it ends. I think the club 9 times out of 10 will reach out and say, hey, where are you at? This is where we're starting. Where are you guys at? And obviously, they start low, we start high, and you try to kind of get in the middle. Some organizations are amazing to deal with. Some won't even talk to you in the 23rd hour. The big thing for me right now, before kind of getting into specifics, is how this window is going to change here with an upcoming CBA. What does the arbitration, situation look like? Are there going to be adjustments to it? We shouldn't be speaking on that personally as an agent on what we think it's going to be, just out of respect to the PA and some owners. But, the arbitration process is definitely not perfect, but more times than not, we obviously I root for every player in their agency to come out on top. I'll kind of preach that to the cows come home.
When you throw numbers back and forth with a team, is it by phone? Do you ever meet in person? How do certain teams
always phone? Yeah, I've never had an in-person one. I mean, in person, you'd obviously be at the hearing, and at that point, if you're there, it has to be a multi-year deal. So, for us, if we're just dealing with, I'll just tell you, on wins this offseason, they call, this is where we're at, and you kind of go through it. Some, ones in the past, especially with this guy up here, we'll throw some numbers on Brownie, and he's like, you're not even close. Like, that's not even close to a comparable player. And I'm like, yeah, well, you're not even close. Like, you're so low that, like, how would you even use that guy as a comparable? Like, he has him trumped in every category, and then he turns back to you and he's like, well, this guy has him trumped everywhere. Like, so eventually, you try to get as close as you can. But I think the one thing that people need to understand, and especially on some of these windows that are so small, and like, how would you go file for this? Why would you want to go to arbitration for this? It sets up essentially like generations. So if this player gets a deal that's $25,000, even less, then the next guy that has better statistics, like, may not be able to get to that benchmark because you took a less than favorable deal. So we're very lucky with a players association that not only protects these players, but obviously has a talking voice within agents to understand, hey, let's meet, let's understand where your number's at, let's see where our number's at, and kind of gives us all the resources and tools to make sure that the player knows that he's not only protected by us, but by the PA also.
Do players treat it differently? Like, are there some guys that are like right in your ear wanting to know every update, and some are like, oh, you just handle it? Or kind of, not that you have to give specific examples, but does it vary depending just on the player?
Yeah, I mean, I've only really represented players that just, hey, this is why we have you. We do a great job, I would say, at Klutch, being able, before you get into the process of, hey, this is some demo ARB cases. This is where we feel like you are. We'll do multiple Zoom calls with them. We'll meet with them during spring training, meet with them during the year, and really have a chance to prep them on where we could see this market going, good, bad, or indifferently. And then end of the season, obviously, like, we'll have multiple phone calls leading up to the days, the weeks, the months ahead, to just kind of understand where their market is truly, so there's no surprises. But for us, most players so far, at least from my experience, are like, hey, this is why we got you. We understand and we agree going into it that this was the number that we're going to try to get to. And then every phone call, it's calling them after, for the most part, and just being like, hey, this is where they're at. This is where we're going to go. Just trying to keep them informed and educated the best that we can. But I've never had a guy want to go into a hearing. So I think from the horror stories, we're good so far.
I was going to say, have you ever heard of a hearing going sideways and it's just like, it's heated and the player walks down, he's like, screw that guy. Like,
during the hearing, stand up, I'll never play for you again. It's like, well, I don't think you understand how arbitration works.
How do you handle that as an agent? Because at some point you have to be like, well, let's just like calm down here. Like, this is kind of the process, unfortunately.
Yeah, emotions are a funny thing, and handling and managing those expectations is part of the business. So I think understanding your client personally, and at the end of the day, it's, again, their career. And I always say, like, if you want to go in the hearing, that's your choice. I'm not here to stop you. We want to facilitate, your comfort level being at 100. So if that means that you want to be in the hearing, but you need to understand the risks also, because, sometimes it's not pretty. And if the player understands those risks and can manage his emotions through it, like, we'll be okay. But there's nothing worse than obviously a client stepping out of that and being like, how do they feel that way about me? Again, sometimes it gets very, very personal, family stuff, etc. So it's a tough and a fine line. And some organizations are amazing and they fight fair. And some organizations, they're trying to cut costs and try to find and steal every dollar they can.
Some organizations cutting costs. You sure about that?
Yeah, I'll again.
Anyways, let's skip to free agency, because this has been a gripe among fans that you see a little bit is the slow pace of free agency in baseball. You see hockey in July 1st and everything picks up, and all the insiders are on vacation by July 4th. Baseball is not like that. Obviously, Kyle Tucker, Bo Bichette's still on the market. Do you think it needs to be fixed? I mean, I think I know your answer, but do you think it needs to be fixed, or something needs to be done to kind of pick up the pace a little bit?
No. I don't know. Is that the answer you're expecting me to say?
That was the answer I was expecting.
At the end of the day, I mean, these clubs have the ability to write checks to make their clubs better, and we'll obviously happily take them. But I think, for every organization, and it kind of go back to the Toronto Blue Jays, you see what winning can do to a community, and winning can do to essentially, obviously, an entire country here. So it is a little bit different. And I applaud, Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro and the Toronto Blue Jays for going out and putting the best team on paper as they can. At the end of the day, it's about playing and being on the field and winning games. In terms of free agency and the pace, the organization must feel comfortable, with their evaluation also of the player. And our job is, understanding the market and making sure we can essentially get as much as we can for them. And there has to be some sort of balance and fit in there. So sometimes, they want to see what a trade market holds, and then that affects a free agent. Sometimes, there are multiple free agents that they kind of view at the same level, and you're waiting for one guy to sign, for somebody else. And now obviously with a looming CBA, contractually, like you see kind of what's going on with certain guys today, and some deals are short with huge AAVs, and some are going to be longer with shorter AAVs. And you have to weigh all the pros and cons of that to obviously your client and understanding where the market could move. So yeah, I'm not upset obviously by the pace of that because, come spring training, 99% of the quote unquote players are signed and will have a home. So tell the fans, like, just stay off social media for a little bit, and we'll see where the team lies kind of opening day.
I think Brent Rooker tweeted out, he's like, what does it matter if they sign November 5th or February 1st? Like, what does it really matter? It doesn't matter, in my opinion. But I've heard this idea of a deadline thrown around. So I'll let you explain why that's a terrible idea.
Just no. It's like, I think everyone kind of stands on the same thing. I mean, this is about putting the best, in my mind, this is about putting the best product on the field to support the game of baseball for fans, the casual fan, the diehard fan, and everyone in between it. So, in some situations too, like there's a huge family dynamic that people forget. I got to uproot my wife and kids and my in-laws, if they want to be close to the family. I mean, there's a lot that obviously goes into a major life decision. And I understand the want for a deadline if you're certain people, but for me, who prides himself on being a family man, it would be a major decision I want to go. And I don't want to feel rushed into it if that's where kind of my head is at and risking the pros and cons. And people's answers are like, well, these guys are overpaid. They're getting paid to do this. They can afford to move their families. They can afford to move this. I mean, I ask you the same question. Like, would you uproot your entire life and every person away from friends, family, in-laws, your entire situation for X amount of money? And what does that money look like? That amount. So yeah, I don't believe that narrative at all. And again, people were.
I'll say that was one of the best ways I've heard it explained. So I appreciate that. We were talking before a little bit about what your spring training looks like. What does your schedule kind of entail through the winter and from this point until you head to warmer pastures?
Yeah, my friends joke about it. They're like, we don't see you when it snows. We only kind of see you during the season when it's hot. And I was like, well, of course not. But yeah, no, the off season's busy between the GM meetings, the winter meetings, endorsement season, free agents, arbitration, and then equipment ordering, for guys, settling endorsement deals and everything in between that, card deals, memorabilia deals. There's a lot that obviously goes into an agent's off season. Our true season, to be honest with you. Our off season almost seems like when the games are actually being played. But it's the best. I mean, opening day for me is the World Series was great. I mean, I had a chance to see baseball, through a 5-year-old and 2-year-old's eyes, which probably brought a love for this game back to me that I probably haven't had since I was a little kid. And I love this game more than anything. And being able to be like, hey, baseball games are starting on X date again. It's written on a calendar, and the optimism that goes into opening day is unmatched to anything I've ever been around. So being able to get out and into warmer climate, and we'll probably head out end of February, beginning of March. And you get to sit down with all your guys again, take them for a meal, breakfast, lunch, dinner, depending on their schedule, and just catch up, talk about the season, goals, and again, I'm lucky enough to represent some of the greatest humans on the planet, not just players. So, being able to check in with their families, make sure they're doing okay, how camp's going, how their body's feeling, all that type of fun stuff face to face is the best.
I guess my last question to wrap up is just for you personally. Do you have any minor league guys that you're really excited about this season, and guys that people should keep an eye on, Canadian or not? I just wanted to open the floor and give you a chance to kind of brag about some of your clients.
Yeah, I mean, I could brag about them all. Emilian Pitre. Petey is the one right now that I think, was a top 30 guy, just kind of fell off on the pipeline list there. But, he's a guy that is probably a little undervalued just in baseball terms. But if you know Petrie and you're around him and watch him actually play the game, I mean, I think he's going to play for a long, long time. Jonathan Pintaro with the Mets debuted just for a cup of coffee. Sorry, Jonathan, last season. But I think he's one that has a chance to really solidify himself this year in that rotation or in the bullpen or in some sort of bulk role. And honestly, I'm really excited for Eric Sabrowski. I mean, missed a lot of time last year with injury. Has a chance, obviously, in that bullpen to continue to knock on wood, is be healthy and have success in an organization that historically finds a way to always, be there competitively. So, there's a lot of guys that I'm super excited about. Micah Bucknam, probably another one, 4th rounder of the Blue Jays last year, DBU, a kid, and just got drafted. And, again, you look at the Toronto Blue Jays last year, and, Trey Savage is obviously a special talent, but, they're not afraid if you're going to go compete at the highest level and get guys out and they feel like you're ready, we're here to win. And Bucknam, being that advanced college player, has got a chance to follow some sort of path in that direction. And obviously super excited to kind of get out there and watch him in spring.
For sure. And I loved the couple Canadian shout outs you had. I appreciate it.
Gotta do it. Yeah. I almost dropped a couple of A's and stuff in there. I mean, I always joke with the guys. I was lucky enough to have 2 guys, obviously, in the Futures game this year. And Jonah and Owen, and, being around them, doing some media stuff. And Jonah's talking about dipping, his grilled cheese and maple syrup. And I'm like, man, like this is just the most Canadian thing ever. But it's cool. Like, I love being Canadian. I've never found it, obviously, being a crutch in this country. I find, again, that it helps me be authentic to me. I've had the opportunities to move different places in the United States. And, for me being from the Burlington area and raise a young family with my wife and 2 kids, for me is like one of the greatest things that I'll ever be able to do in life. So lucky enough to have the support of, again, probably the 2 highest Canadians likely drafted this year. At least that's the hope on top of it all. So really trying to find a way to grow the game here and be the best versions, obviously, of ourselves. And appreciate, obviously, you guys and all the work that you guys do for that also.
Yeah, man, we appreciate you taking the time. I know it's busy, and I'm sure this won't be the last time you catch up. But again, thank you so much for taking the time.
I appreciate you guys. It means a lot. Thank you so much.